Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you all here. Good to see folks in person. First thing I wanted to remind folks about is mic etiquette. We have microphones in front of us, and Rob, our audiovisual expert, has reminded us to use the mics when we're speaking and to be about this distance from the microphone. So March 10th of 2020, I think, was the last time that the council met for a regular business meeting in person here. And so that's 25 months. 3 of those months, Susan met in person as a member of the council, and then we went remote. And of course, Danny is joining us just for the first time, so welcome.
Very exciting night to be here.
All right, we can dispense with the roll call since we're in person. And we'll move straight ahead to our poetry reading. And I believe, yes, Fred Joyner is here with us. Welcome, Fred.
Good evening. It is good to be here in person, to see everyone and feel everyone's presence. I'm going to read a poem. So my birthday is in a couple days. April 14th, I'll be 47. And so, strangely enough, it started me thinking about my father. And he's still living. He lives in Durham. And but I think about everything that my dad had accomplished at this age, and I'm like, well, what's wrong with me? But anyway, so I was going through this book by a friend of mine named Quentin Collins. It's like Dandelion Speaks of Survival. And there's this poem in here, and it's praise for my father's hands. And I love it when black poets, and particularly black male poets, write about their fathers. Because I think it dispels a certain kind of mythology about black fatherhood. And so I'm going to read this poem, Praise for My Father's Hands. Praise my father's hands that grip a comb. Its teeth gather knotted strands on my head, demand hair straighten. My ear tucked beneath his thumb, the clippers chatter. His thumb and forefinger cradle my forehead. Tip my head back so the lighting behaves. Praise his fingers at my temples, tilting my head forward. The clippers that cut my unkempt kitchen. Praise blade oil. The brush as it clears and clear cuts strands. The bristles, the quick sweeps. Praise the next clipper stroke. My father's squat and eye-level stare before he starts again. Clippers quiet as he charts another stroke. Praise my itchy scalp. The dandruff dots the bath towel tucked into my t-shirt. Hair patches tumble down my chest. Praise my nodding head. That lull, the body tingle as I drift. My father's hands lifts my chin, chides me to keep my head up. His pride as he holds the mirror. Praise my praise, not because I am satisfied with the cut, but because I am tired of swinging my legs from the stool. My father shakes out the towel. Praise the broom. My scalp prickly beneath my fingers. Praise my father's fingers and the palms as they soothe dryness with Vaseline on my head. Praise his hands, their care, their calluses, their dirt, their steadiness, their grip. Praise the clippers buzzing again. My father before the bathroom mirror, the blades bound for his head. So that was Quentin Collins. It's a beautiful poem. Yeah, check out his work. The Dandelion Speaks of Survival. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Fred. It's good to see you, and happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for this beautiful.
Hard not to clap in person. You wanna do something. Yeah.
You can clap.
Thank you, Fred.
All All right. Before we get on to the rest of the agenda, I did want to just take a moment to acknowledge that we are meeting in person for the first time in a while, and we've gotten used to, over the past 25 months, interacting in a certain way with each other and seeing each other in little Zoom boxes on the screen. And I think we get, sort of habituated to certain ways of talking and interacting, and I just wanted to encourage us to be patient with each other tonight. Have a little bit of grace, and we're going to get through this first meeting, I think, pretty easily. But I'll do my best to get back into the routines of calling on people when they raise their hand and all of those things that we do in a very different way on Zoom than we do in person. So I just ask for your patience for that, and patience for our speakers who we have tonight, who also are appearing before us in person for the first time in a long time. And looking forward to hearing from everyone who's here tonight, including staff. I appreciate all the work that staff has done in getting us ready for tonight. Yes, Barbara.
Procedural question,
Yes,
Mayor. So are we raising hands to be acknowledged? You don't want us to shout out, do you?
Yeah, I would appreciate a raised hand.
Oh,
That'd be
okay.
good. And I will do my best to
To see whoever
now
you
on
see.
Zoom, it's easy to see who comes in the list, right?
Right.
But here, I'll do my best to scan the room, but be forgiving in your
Yes,
judgments.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
All right. I have no resolutions or proclamations. And so we'll move on to the announcement of upcoming meetings.
Thank you, Mayor. Good to see everybody. I have a few upcoming meetings I'll read off here. We have the Arts Committee meeting April 13th at 6 p.m. This is a virtual meeting. The Economic Sustainability Commission meeting will also be on April 13th at 6 p.m. That meeting is actually in person. The Stormwater Advisory Commission meeting April 13th at 6:30 p.m. and that is held virtual. And then the next Town Council meeting will be next Tuesday here at Town Hall at 7 p.m. That's all I have.
Thanks, Wesley. Any others? Susan? And then Randy?
The Intergovernmental Parks Work Group is meeting Wednesday, April 13th, beginning at 5:30.
Thanks, Susan. Randy?
Oh, I just wanted to take a moment and wish folks who are celebrating holidays this weekend the very best of holidays. Good Friday.
Use your mic, Randy.
Good Friday, Easter, Passover. Have a joyous holiday all.
Thank you, Randy. Barbara?
Wesley, did you mention human services? Not human services. I'm sorry. I was just in that meeting last night. Partnership to End Homelessness on Monday at
I
6.
did not mention that.
Yeah, so
Right.
that's the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness, Monday at 6 p.m. It's still virtual for us.
Thanks, Barbara. Susan?
One quick question. Mr. Manager, I noticed some of the advisory board meetings are virtual and some are in person. And so is this being left up to each advisory board chair to make that decision, or how does that work?
Staff liaisons are polling each of the advisory boards and commissions to determine what their preference might be. And we're working through that to also figure out if some hybrid arrangement might be possible as well. But we anticipate having an answer in about the next 2 weeks for all the advisory boards and commissions.
Thank you.
Barbara?
I'm sorry. Why you got your mask off, Mr. White? Don't put it back on yet. So mine is to follow up with Mayor Pro Tem Romaine. So could it be that some are hybrid and some are in person? Are we looking at a mix, or are we trying to, have some consistency?
We're trying to figure out what we're hearing is that for some boards are not quite ready to go back fully in person. And so in that case, there may be some hybrid arrangement, but we're not certain that's possible either. So we're just trying to work through all the
Still
options
working on it.
and
Okay.
trying to figure out what that might look like on the backside.
Okay, thank you.
Danny?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, in the interest of recording this for anybody who might be watching at home, there's been strong interest in hybrid meetings. I think that lift is a little bit higher for our staff than we might realize, certainly than I realized. So all that is to say, the advisory boards that I have been sitting on, I think are remaining virtual mostly right now, but I remain hopeful that we will get a long-term hybrid, and we'll be pushing for that. But I know that our staff is on it. So
Thanks, Danny. Sammy?
Yeah, I just want to remind folks, because it's kind of new news, that our wastewater COVID is showing 200% increase over the last 15 days. And the CDC is designating our area in terms of transmission as substantial. So unfortunately, what we've seen across the world, BA2, having an impact is arriving here. So I'll just caution us as we're thinking about meeting in person and really encourage us to think about a mask mandate again. It's a low-hanging fruit, very easy thing to do to encourage people to know that, if we cut down on transmission, then we don't have to wait for hospitalizations, death, and long COVID thereafter.
Thanks, Sammy. Okay, on the topic of upcoming meetings, tomorrow morning at 9, there is a board meeting of the Durham Chapel Hill Carrboro MPO. That is a virtual meeting, I hope. And then tomorrow morning, it is tomorrow morning. Also at 8 a.m., there is the joint event co-hosted by the town and the Carrboro Business Alliance for local business owners to come and meet with town staff. Okay. All right. I have 2 people signed up to speak on matters not on our printed agenda. And so I'll just go in the order that they're signed up here. And first is Diana Newton. Diana, welcome. Come on up front here. And you, just behind the podium there with the microphone, if you'll be sure to use the mic. And as usual, I'll have kind of a 3-minute timer going.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Hello, council members in person. Glory be. I'm Diana Newton, as some of you may know. I've been thinking about what I want to propose tonight for a while, and particularly in the past few weeks, it's become imperative for me to speak directly to it. I think we all recognize that Carrboro has a reputation of being a progressive town, but of late, I think that reputation is showing itself to have some threadbare spots. So I asked that the town council take up a resolution to change Carrboro's slogan, "Feel Free," to one that is more descriptive of our realities. As the community survey that will be reviewed later tonight reveals, many people in Carrboro do not feel free to find an affordable place to live. They do not feel free from having their homes and property flooded by unmanaged stormwater. They do not feel free from the negative economic impacts of COVID and their ability to recover from it. They don't feel free from racial tensions, as we heard very painfully last week. They don't feel free to find needed services or to make it as an essential worker. Don't feel free from some developers making some really inappropriate decisions once they are granted permission to build. They don't feel free right now to be part of a free and fair election process. Okay. I know that stealing campaign signs is a long-time dirty trick and considered just sort of a nuisance. But right now there is a targeted campaign that is going on that every night, campaign signs are being stolen, destroyed, and defaced. Okay? Here is the sad remains of a banner that was this wide. It was slashed and just leaves "Vote May 17th" on it. I've spoken to both Aja Kelleher and just now I had coffee for an hour with Eleazar Posada, and both of them are experiencing this phenomenon. Eleazar said he's had 24 stolen. Aja's had all but 3 of hers stolen, including vinyl banners slashed. So if there is a way that you can use your council influence in social media or otherwise to say, please, whoever these bad actors are, stand down, we might have a chance to actually learn about the candidates and the issues that matter. And I know as people who've campaigned, you know about this nuisance, but it's actually a crime and it's against our freedom of free speech. Okay. So with that said, given these many ways we have, in the words of Robert Frost, many miles to go before we sleep in achieving the genuine freedoms I think this town deserves to live into its proposed character of feeling free, I think that slogan has kind of a patronizing character to it. knowing what we know and seeing what we're seeing. So maybe we should consider "Get Real" or some other slogan. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Diana.
Stay here.
No, you're fine. Thank you very much for sharing those comments, and certainly take to heart your comments about the election, which is coming up, and reminder to folks that messing with election materials is in fact a crime, as well as you said, described it a nuisance. So thank you for that, and certainly take your comments about the slogan to heart as well. Something for us to think about as we sometime when we come back to the topic of the slogan. Maybe we don't need a slogan at all. Sammy.
Just wondering if our police department's aware of it, because it is a crime. Okay, good. Thanks.
Thanks, Sammy. All right. Thanks again, Diana. Next up, I have Carrie White. Welcome.
Forgiven.
We all have them. And I'll just give you the same reminder that I gave to Diana, that we have kind of a 3-minute rule.
Okay,
But
I will try.
I'll avoid being tyrannical about it.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, folks. I'm Carrie White. I'm a retired SAS employee, long-term, 30-plus year resident of Carrboro. My wife and I live at Rock Spring Court. She's a retired school teacher. Our property happens to back up to the pathway property, so we, along with others, are very interested in that, and that's really what I want to speak about tonight. I couldn't believe when I first heard of it that the town was considering such an unlikely spot for high-density development. It frankly amazed me. And we had purchased our homes 20 years ago and some others 40 years ago in that neighborhood with the understanding that this was a greenway that had been deeded to the town by the Tripp family, who developed Fair Oaks. In fact, when we moved in, we asked about this. And we discovered that no, it's not going to be developed. It's a permanent green space. In fact, any rational person looking at it could never visualize high-density development there. If it had been ideal for that, then the original developer would have probably developed it as part of Fair Oaks. There's really no reason for them to give it to the town. I doubt if the town had enough power to make them do that at that time. So obviously it was not a developable piece of land. We're told that MLK Park makes this green space unnecessary. I don't think you can really compare MLK Park with its open fields, very nice, and pine trees to a 100 to 200-year-old old-growth forest. I think it would make a very good addition to MLK Park as MLK Greenway, perhaps. It's close. People can walk from one to the other. So I don't really think that anybody in the town reviewed the site. Did anybody walk that site before it was selected? I've heard that they really didn't, that it was all due to metrics. In fact, one of the documents from February 8th, when you had a significant meeting on this year, said that there was no significant slope in that property. Significant slope, if you look at it, it's 8, I measured it today. Rough measure, of course, but I measured it, it was 18 degrees. And what happens to water when it goes in a slope? It goes downhill and their houses down below. I'm not going to speak about that tonight, but there are some folks in our group who are very knowledgeable about stormwater damage. In fact, many of you have gone to that hill to go sledding. I don't know, has anybody here been there for sledding?
I'm sure
I don't
Randy
think if
has.
it didn't have slope, would you visit it for sledding? I don't think so. So there is slope there. Read back on the document though from February 8th and you'll see that there's no slope. We've been told the town is at step 0 in the process. However, in another document from 2/8, it says that our time for public comment will come after plans have been developed for it. In fact, I have that right here. And if I don't find it quickly, I will post it tonight. It says step 2, community engagements and goal for the identified property. After pre-development assessments, the next step is to conduct community engagement to develop the project design. And I ask you, where were we as residents of Spring Valley, Fair Oaks, and Webwood when that property was selected, Waverly Forest Edition? Where were we? Why were we not consulted? Where was our input? Where was our freedom to participate in the process?
Mr. White.
So I have to say, just in closing, thank you, that I wonder why that site was selected. Did the council actually visit it? Or is there some other reason? Is there some other agenda behind the selection of that site? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here tonight. And I believe, Mr. White, you're probably on the email list that the staff has for sending out information about this process as it goes on. One thing that I want to share about that process that we adopted is that it does, in fact, as you noted, build in public engagement early on before there is any development plan put together. The idea of where we are now is, or where the town is just first understanding what the features of the property are. Some of the exact issues you talked about, the history of the property, the topography, the environmental features, potential greenway uses, all of those kinds of things. To even know if those things are, possibilities in the first place before the town would even take the next step of coming up with designs or development ideas or anything like that. So there's much more to come, including a lot of front-loaded public engagement, including especially the folks who live right around the property before there would be any designs made or development plans created. But the staff can certainly share more information with you about it, and I think that the manager has sent out a sort of information sheet about that as well, and we can do some more of that as well. So thanks for being here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, Sammy, then Barbara.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, because you asked how the town came to that, to identify that property. And as someone who has been on the affordable housing task force from when it was born, one of the tasks sought was what town properties do we own? What do we own? What land is there? And there are very few, this one being one of them. And so we've basically included most of the 3 town properties that we have, and that's how it's been identified. But beyond knowing this is owned by us, as the mayor described, I think we're at the stage of understanding better the other characteristics of the properties.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Sammy. Barbara?
Yeah, so I want to go back in time. It's not related to this, to last week, when the owners of present day on Main came in and spoke to all of us about the racially charged incident that happened at their establishment. And what I'm asking for tonight is any type of update around that. Of particular interest to me is the way they describe the interaction with our police department. And so that is very concerning to me. I know that there are other issues, But I'm asking, and I will continue to ask. I feel like there should be some type of, this has been very public. It's been all over the news. I got it in my email as recently as this morning again. And so the community is aware. So I feel like there should be a response to the community about what we as elected officials for the town staff, the town in general, what steps are we taking to hopefully prevent this from happening again. And so that's for whomever. I feel like it would be Mr. White. I see Chief ATAC is not here. But for me, I'm concerned about the police response. I've had a couple of phone calls, about other things, even outside of that, some of which I've shared with Mr. White. And so, it bears watching. And I want us to have a good response to present day on Main as well as to the public, what we are able to share. Thank you.
So, Councilwoman Foushee, I'll split it into two pieces. The first piece would be the police response. And so a formal complaint was filed in terms of the way the officer handled that situation. So that's under investigation, and that's ongoing. I don't have results of that as of yet. But I will say that our police department does take any complaint we get very seriously, and they are looking into that to make sure that we respond in a way that certainly meets our citizens' expectations. Secondly, staff has met with the owners of present day on Main, and in fact, we have a meeting that we're trying to set up probably early next week with the two owners of the property. There's a team of town staff who will be meeting with them to address the other issues that they brought up to see what the town could do to respond to some of the other concerns that they raised when they brought that before council.
Thank you, Mr. White. Do you have a timeline for the police response?
I do not, but I can check with Chief ATAC to get that for council to let you know kind of what timeline they're on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Okay. Sammy and then Randy.
Yeah, and following up on Barbara's request is, I think there was a list of things that were identified, and I think at that meeting I asked, I expressed interest in seeing what that list was. I may have missed it in my email. If that's available, if it could be forwarded to the council, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Randy?
Yeah, so one of the things that was talked about was fencing and signage. And I guess I want to raise the question for us as a council, how can we consider, rather than only looking at reparations to the Black community, looking at creating an opportunity to pay forward, and as we use the racial equity lens, and maybe creating supports for Black and BIPOC businesses that encounter the kinds of financial burden that something like this situation revealed. And I would just like us to have some time to talk about that aspect of supporting Black and BIPOC businesses and through either grant funds or race equity funds.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Thanks, Randy. Okay. Mr. Manager, you've heard what council members have had to say on that topic. Looking forward to some more information from you. And we will move on to the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item is the approval of the minutes from the February 1st and February 8th, 2022 meetings. The second item is the quarterly report, 2022 first quarter for the towns of Carrboro, CDBG-CV grant number 20-V-3525. And the purpose of this item is for the town council to receive the first quarter report for the calendar year 2022 for the town of Carrboro's Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Award from the North Carolina Department of Commerce.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Manager. So we have two items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Barbara? Is there a second? Danny, it's been moved by Barbara and seconded by Danny that we approve the consent agenda. Is there a discussion?
Sorry, quick
Sammy?
question. I'm sorry, Mr. Manager. Did you reference the edits that were provided by the council members for the minutes?
There were
I
some edits
missed.
by
Did you-
Susan and Sammy, I
Okay,
believe.
got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sammy, for checking that. All right, motion by Barbara, second by Danny to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. The matter passes unanimously. All right, Mr. Manager.
The first item under other matters is the review and acceptance of the 2022 annual report on the school's adequate public facilities ordinance from the Technical Advisory Committee. The purpose of the agenda item is to request that the town council review and accept the 2022 annual report on the school's adequate public facilities ordinance. The Orange County Board of County Commissioners has referred the 2022 draft report for review, and a resolution that accepts the report is attached.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Trish, it's really nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for your service all this time and for your attention this evening. I'm sorry I don't have my presentation pulled up. It'll just take me a moment to get it for you. Hopefully. Okay. Another year, another SAPFO TAC. So,
It's Danny's first SAPFO report.
Say that 3 times fast.
Sapotec.
that's right. Excellent job. Good
Got
job.
some skills.
Okay, so my plan for this evening is just to is shown here. I'm going to provide you a little bit of background information about this, just in case we've forgotten, since it's been a year since the last one. And then I've got about 10 slides to share with you to go through the report and what we're looking at tonight. The most important thing to say is that this process has been in place since the early 2000s, when both the memorandum of understanding and the ordinances that are associated with it were put in place. And this process was established to cooperatively plan for the construction of schools and the provision of schools in our school district. There is a similar agreement in place between Orange County, Town of Hillsborough, and the Orange County schools. But our agreement pertains to the towns of Chapel Hill and Carrboro, Orange County, and the Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools. So it is to provide for the coordination of the construction of schools, but also the coordination in the approval of residential developments that have the potential to add students to the school population and then create demand for school capacity. The SAPFO has 2 parts to it, 2 principal parts. The first is basically a capital investment planning process. And that is structured around the collection of a variety of types of data and projections of school membership. So the data includes the actual enrollment in the schools and the evaluation of the capacity of the schools, the numbers of classrooms essentially. And that changes periodically because the requirements for school classroom sizes changes as well, as it did most recently starting in about 2016 with that capacity changing through this current year. The second part of the SAPFO involves the CAPS process, and that's the certificates of adequate public schools. And that is the part that most directly links in with the town when we review and approve residential development. It applies to residential developments of 5 units or more, so long as those residential developments don't include are not geared to with a significant amount of time dedicated to occupancy by senior residents or by students who are in a dormitory type of situation. So otherwise, it applies to all of our residential developments. And in this process, the school system is obligated to take a look at their capacity and then what each residential development will yield in terms of students. And we have a structure that's included in the SAPFO that is a student generation rate figures, essentially. And that's based on a series of studies that have been done over the years to update those generation rates in relation to different types of residential units. So if there is available capacity, the school system will allow or will award a certificate of adequate public schools to a residential development. That typically happens after a project is approved, so not before, but once it's approved, but prior to the approval of the construction plan. So we have it early in the process, but not until it is approved. And then finally, once the projects are actually constructed, the students are captured as they're captured actually in the SAPFO process as enrolled students. So once they show up in the system as part of the annual process of looking at student membership, then they show up there and feed into that projection process, looking out 10 years into the future. So currently, we have about just over almost 11,500 students in our Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools population, and all of the schools have available capacity. So there's a level of service defined in this capital investment planning part of the SAPFO, and the levels of service are shown in the parentheses there next to each school level. 105% at the elementary school, 107 at the middle school, and 110 at the high school. And the numbers next to those are the current levels of service. So there is capacity at all three school levels. This is for the current year. So this is these are the tables basically that apply to the Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools, and these are the tables that are included at the back of the document. They're obviously, this is a very data intensive numerical process, and the real thing to take away when you look at this is I like to focus on the sort of peach colored lines, because those are the lines where the school capacity is shown, the level of service, that is to say, and then the enrollment figures. And so if we zoom in on this, you can see, and the real thing that pops for you here is that the numbers shown in red in the parentheses are showing that there's available capacity within schools, and that's true at each of the school levels. You can see, you may have noted that it's an increasing amount of capacity right now, because at present there is a decreased rate of growth shown for the student population. So just some conditions to note in this year's report. COVID-19 has had an effect on, or is believed to have had an effect on the school population. There has been a decrease in student membership during this period of time. It is believed to be temporary, but because this process of projecting future needs is based on actual membership, that relationship, and the projection models that are done are based on those numbers actually. Orange County did actually prepare several models that used previous trends of student enrollment, so they could test that model, and just in case there was a rapid response after COVID, that is to say, a significant increase again in the student population, they wanted to see how well we could rely, how much we could rely on that not needing additional capacity within 10 years, and so they did a number of iterations of this model and did find that held based on just using previous years as the basis for the additional, for the plugging in for the enrollment. Pre-K enrollment has been a conversation point for many years related to SAPFO, because pre-K students are not included in the SAPFO itself as students the school system is required to provide for. So there are about 222 students in the current year. These are classrooms that are within the schools. It's an ongoing conversation and ongoing assessment of how to handle the pre-K students. This occurs both in the Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools and in the Orange County Schools. So it is an ongoing point of discussion, but they are not presently included. We do continuously monitor the growth and of residential development activity, so the number of projects that come forward. A large project in Chapel Hill, what is going to be the impact of those 264 units with the associated projections you might have noticed in the table that accompanied the memo from Commissioner Price. We don't have as big of an issue with unknown residential growth because because Chapel Hill is included in the system as we are, but in Orange County it's a much bigger deal with Mebane, since they are not part of the Orange County memorandum agreement related to the schools. Charter school membership, similar to pre-K enrollment. Those students are not part of the projections, part of the enrollment analysis, evaluation of capacity, but through information from the Department of Public Instruction, the staff evaluates what is the charter school population looking like. Currently, there are about almost 160 students budgeted for by Orange County, part of the charter schools. There are, as many of you may know, 2 in Hillsborough alone. So, and then finally, there's been a sort of a shift in interest in looking at school renovation and expansion, in addition to new construction, but alternative to that, because the timelines can be shorter, the budgetary impacts can be less. As a result of that, they are accounted for slightly differently in the way we model for capacity, in that they are allowed to show up as soon as the dollars are allocated for those improvements, as opposed to when a whole new school is constructed. In that case, the model doesn't account for those student capacity being added until they actually show up, until the school is open. Some general takeaways from this year's report are that we're not exceeding the projected or the required level of service that was established for the SAPFO at the present time, and we do not see within the 10-year planning horizon a need for new schools at any of the school levels. Work to plan for and renovate existing facilities is ongoing, and as I mentioned already, the future growth rates are showing a decrease in the growth of the populations at the elementary, middle, and high school levels presently. So I just wanted to highlight this memo that we included in your packet, which we do every year, just to kind of give you a picture of caps that have been issued for developments in Carrboro since the program was put in place. I've color-coded this from the version that you received in your packets, and the pink and gray shades are projects that, the pink are all projects that are, homes have all been constructed, they're occupied. All of those students associated with those homes are showing up in those annual enrollment figures. The 2 gray lines are projects that were where the owners of those permits allowed the permits to expire. They have not been constructed, so the caps really aren't applicable to those anymore. The sort of orange or peach line at the top is a partial development situation where Ballantyne has a phase that was not yet constructed, and they have, of course, since then obtained a rezoning to have a higher density development there, but they have not pursued the permit for that. So that one is still in flux, but the caps are still applicable with regard to the 18 homes that were not yet constructed. Viridia is in light green because its permit is still active, but it's not yet under construction. And then the other green ones on here, the 3 developments at the bottom, Perry Place, Sanderway, and Kentfield, are all under construction at present. Just to give you a sense of which ones have or have not yet shown up in the enrollment figures. And then with that, the requested action tonight is for you to adopt a resolution accepting this report, subject to any comments or questions you may have. And the Board of Commissioners has requested that we complete this evaluation before or by April 18th, which is before your next meeting. I apologize for that. So you only have tonight.
Thank you so much, Trish. And before we go to questions from council members, I will acknowledge that because we have the windows open behind us here.
Did you hear me say anything?
Good. Actually, I was going to congratulate you. You were competing with Shakira for a long time there, and you actually held up pretty well. So sympathies to anyone who has to compete with Shakira for anything. But you, here you are. Congratulations. No, we heard it very well. Thank you. We'll go to Sammy and then Susan.
Thanks, Trish. Good to see you.
Same here. Thank you.
Just I had a question. You kind of prompted us, or maybe not, but you mentioned that there is an ongoing discussion about whether to include pre-K in the count or not. And I think maybe this is a good time for the council to provide some comment on that. Pre-K takes up facility space, I presume, and this is all about needing to keep up with facility space, correct? So just knowing that, I think it would make sense to count it, unless there's something I'm missing. And so I I'm just putting that out there if we want to include that in our resolution.
Yeah. Thanks, Sammy. It's clearly being tracked, so why not include it, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Susan?
I appreciate that comment. I support that, Sammy. I know that there's a lot of families in Carrboro that are paying more in daycare than they're paying in rent. And so the need for daycare is only going to increase. And yeah, I think we should count those numbers. One question, one comment. And first of all, good to see you in person, Trish. Thank you for your presentation. And I could hear everything loud and clear. One question, one comment. So the question is, the enrollment did go down during COVID, and it's still a little bit unclear just how much, to what extent these students will re-enroll in the public schools. Some were homeschooled, some were going to alternative schools. I think I saw somewhere in the report that we will be, it's well beyond 10 years before we may need additional school capacity. And so that begs the question, has there been any discussion, at the county level, anything that you've heard about this land that's set aside in the Green Tract for a future elementary school? Has there been any consideration of maybe we don't need that after all in the Green Tract?
There has been no discussion at the staff technical advisory committee level. I do not know whether there have been discussions at the school board level. That is, the Orange County, the Board of County Commissioners do meet, or does meet rather, with the school board. I don't know, but I can check.
Mm-hmm.
But I have not heard heard anything about it.
Mm-hmm. I was just curious if you'd heard. The other question I had is, I saw the listing of the possible residential developments, and many of them included were in northern Carrboro. And I wasn't sure if I saw there's a concept plan that came before the planning board for, I think it was 72 detached single-family homes bordering Shadow Ridge. And was that included on the list? I'm just thinking this is another
Not yet. No,
source of-
we haven't included that yet because it is still in a pre-application process. So
Okay, so as long as it's pre-application, it does not appear on the list then?
no, usually
Okay.
we're going to see things on the list when they're beginning to be an application, and then some of the details are being more well known.
Mm-hmm.
There are different rates for different housing types associated with the school, the student generation rates. So we wait a little bit beyond that to communicate about that. And often there'll be communication with the school district, but not seeking any certificates until it's until after it's approved, actually, because they don't want to allocate a certificate to a development that may not or isn't approved.
Mm-hmm. I would just include perhaps in the comments that, I'm thinking of this new development adjacent to Lake Hogan Farms. I know there was a concept planned at the planning board, I think last week with this was, I think, 70 triplexes that would be in between Claremont and Lake Hogan Farms. Omar Zinn's proposal came before the planning board. So just in the spirit of there could be a lot more residential development coming into northern Carrboro, which would certainly put a little bit more pressure on enrollment beginning at the elementary school level.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Randy, and then Danny.
Hi, Trish.
Howdy.
My question isn't so much about this report, and by the way, I'll move attachment A when I'm finished asking this question. My question is, when we have conversation with the Chapel Carrboro City School Board, how much leverage do we have to request that school assignments be more neighborhood oriented, so that students can bike and walk more readily? I have neighbors who drive their children to Carrboro School when we're in the walk zone of McDougal, and I just really feel that if there's capacity at McDougal, then, we're breaking our neck in every way possible to make statements about climate and emissions. And then we have children being shuttled to schools that they could easily be walking to instead. So when do we, really get the teeth behind our policy and get the Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools programming to reflect that that's a priority? And so I don't know where we go with that question. I just know it drives me crazy to think that, there's people driving back and forth to Carrboro School when their children could be easily walking not only to the elementary school, but then to the middle school. So how many years is that? You're talking about 8 years of schooling.
Mm-hmm. I should point out that the levels of service are accumulative. They're cumulative over all of the schools at each level. So a school could actually be over its capacity, an individual school, but another one less than that. And I know that they try to balance that regularly. But to answer your question generally, I think, a question of districting and how the students are assigned to the schools would be a question, I think, for the school board.
Exactly.
And a question you could address to them in relation to the points you made.
Yeah, before our COVID situation, we did meet with school board, the superintendent and the assistant superintendent of support services. I don't know that we're scheduled to do so, but Manager White, I would ask that we look to do that, because I don't get the sense from folks I know that the school board or the school principals necessarily even know that our Carrboro Community Climate Action Plan exists, let alone what our policies are. So we really need to get on the same page.
Thanks, Randy.
And I moved the...
Yeah, I'm going to come back to you for that motion because I know we have people offering some potential additions to the resolution, but I will come back to you for the motion. Thank you, Danny, and then we'll go back to Sammy.
Thank you. Yeah, Trish, this is really, I'll be happy to move to second, but I'm strictly curious. The negative growth rate, do y'all have conversations over the horizon at which you anticipate that, the factors that are really driving that, the degree to which that's stable? I would assume COVID plays a huge factor, but also I think it's tough to not hear that our school age population is falling largely because of several other conversations we're probably having as a town, largely about affordability. And so I'm just curious as to who keeps that, how stable do we expect that negative number to stay, what factors are involved?
Well, I don't think we have a perfect answer to that question. Different household types can have different sizes of families. They can have different numbers of children generated associated with different housing types. It can be it could be a result of different housing types that have come onto the market that don't. There are a number of questions. I don't know. I could certainly ask if the modelers, who are primarily the modeling for this is done by Orange County planning staff, running the model, that is to say, and see if they have any particular insights. I think it may be a variety of those factors, but the overall trends of the population here, it could be related to a number of things. So,
thanks.
But I can see if they've surmised anything from what they've looked at so far.
To my understanding, we have what we need here for this conversation tonight, and it's an interesting stat, and I would be curious to track it. Yeah, thank you.
I agree. Thank you. Sure thing.
Thanks, Danny.
I have a question.
I have
Mayor. Can you?
Had Sammy come in next.
Oh, it was Sammy. I'm sorry.
I'll come to you, Barbara, right after Sammy.
I forgot about Sammy. I didn't mean to.
All right.
Just wanted to offer a friendly amendment. Therefore, be it further resolved that the council is of the opinion that pre-K numbers should be included in the SAFO calculus.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I've got one from Susan as well, so that's why I'm going to come back to Randy for that motion, and we'll talk some more about Sammy's comment and Susan's comment. Yes, Susan.
Sorry, to
Trish.
I just want to point out that to add the pre-K students may actually require adjusting the MOU and the ordinances. And I also want to make sure that, I mean, those are students, some of whom are paying to go to pre-K. They are paid spots and not some, for the pre-K programs. Not all of them. I don't know entirely, but some of them certainly are. And it's just a matter of fact, but I just want you to realize that point. And we are still trying to understand entirely how the pre-K students have been kind of accounted for in the capacity analysis in years past, as this topic has come up a few more times. So it does mean that they have to be counted in enrollment. Ultimately, they also have to be accounted for in the projection for demand. So you might make that clear. If the interest is in providing space for pre-K students, if you count them as enrollment and they just show decreased capacity, but there isn't a parallel commitment to providing a capacity for pre-K, if that's the interest, I'm not sure that alone will address it, if you follow me.
So it sounds like this is more complex than what I thought originally. You were saying, excuse me, excuse them.
That was not Shakira.
There's some pre-K families that are paying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so there's a complexity there. And maybe it would behoove us to have a work session to wrap our heads around what those complexities are. So I'll alter my friendly amendment to say the council is interested in further understanding the pre-K complexity numbers and requests a work session to further look into that.
I'd be happy to do that.
Barbara?
Thank you, Mayor. Hey, Trish.
Hey, Barbara. Greetings. Happy 2021. 22.
Did you go back, I think, one slide? I believe one before. No, it was even before that. Yes. So 222 students. I agree with what Sammy was saying about the pre-K enrollment. So what is the history about the lack of inclusion? Did you just answer that question? What is the history on that?
I mean, I don't know if I can speak to what happened in the
the
early
school.
2000s, but
Okay.
I mean, the school system is obligated to provide school for the children at the elementary, middle, and high school levels.
Exactly.
The pre-K has a variety of purposes,
Right.
For it being included in the schools. And I think, well, I know that the Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools had a pre-K program prior to the memorandum of understanding going into place in the 90s at least. I don't know. I mean, there was a decision at one point, and I think a work session might be great because we can track some of the history about when the decision was made to go with the model of having those spaces in the schools, because that is the desired model now for the pre-K classes, and they did have them in off-site as well in a previous iteration.
And so what you're saying is the requirement is for elementary, middle, and high school, not necessarily for the pre-K component?
Correct.
Is that what it is? So
Yes.
it comes in a variety of ways. Okay. Thank you. That's
You're
all I
welcome.
need.
Thanks, Barbara. Okay. So I have a comment from Sammy to include in the resolution, which is that the council has an interest in understanding better the impact of pre-K enrollment on the technical analysis. Susan had also an interest in understanding better the impacts of including residential developments proposals that are not yet approved, but that are sort of in the development review process. Randy, you have a motion to approve the resolution with those comments?
Yeah, and also Sammy had requested a work session. So with that,
Can we come back to that?
sure, okay. So yes on Sammy's comments and Susan.
Okay.
Is there a second of the resolution?
Danny,
And then Danny.
Danny
and then
did.
Barbara, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about Councilmember Romaine. Now, these are concept plans, and so what I understand from the agenda item is things that are constructed under construction. So is there room for Mayor Pro Tem Romaine? what Mayor Pro Tem Romaine is suggesting at the concept phase. Do you?
Well, I think that, I mean, it isn't obviously a
probably
formal
coming.
incorporation of the numbers into the projections, but it sounds like, I mean, it sounded to me like a just providing an additional heads up essentially about
Okay.
those projects as part of this ongoing monitoring of growth and demand, which is what the staff at Orange County tries to do very closely, the ones who do the modeling on the SAPFO. And all of us really in looking at whether or not a project is going to get certificates of adequate public schools when they go to request them from school systems. So I think just emphasizing the need to do that because from what is happening, what you've seen on the horizon recently, I think is fine to underscore. I don't see it as anything formally into the process
Thank you.
right now.
Great. I appreciate the thorough report as usual, the annual report. There's a motion by Randy and a second by Danny to approve the resolution with the comments from Sammy and Susan.
Question.
Sammy.
Just curious what your thinking is in terms of the work session.
Well, it seems to me that your request in the resolution is for us to, that we're expressing our interest in better understanding the issue of pre-con enrollment. I guess I would suggest that we ask for some insights from the county staff and the people doing that technical analysis before we commit to having a full-blown work session on the topic. And they may have some really interesting insights to share with us without us needing to say today that we need a work session. That's all.
Yeah. So you envision that as like an email and that we.
I think, I don't know how Trish will follow up with them after this resolution is adopted, but
I'm just wary of this falling through the cracks,
Sure.
whereas a work session kind of makes it an agenda, a literal agenda item.
well, I guess I'd take it this resolution is direction to staff to express our interest in that information about the impacts of pre-K enrollment on the technical analysis. So,
So, okay, that's fine. As staff can, all through, staff's always busy and
Yes.
a lot of things are on their plate. So I just wanted to make sure if it's our intention to really tackle this, to request a work session. But, if it's not a high priority, then we don't.
that's not so much an issue of priority as it is like, let's see what information we can get first. And then we'll know whether that's something that requires a work session or maybe your questions will be answered. I don't know.
Okay.
That makes sense. Okay. So motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. The matter passes unanimously. Thank you, Trish.
Thank you
And
very
Mr. Manager,
much.
you heard the discussion about the two particular information items that we're interested in.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn my screen off for just a second.
We can slow roll the rest of this.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Trish.
Thanks, Trish.
Thank you, Trish.
Mr. Manager?
The next item is update on the Town of Carrboro website redesign. The purpose of this item is to update the Town Council on the Town of Carrboro website redesign and related improvements.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you. It's so nice to see you in person.
And you.
Thank you. Let's see. Okay, good evening. I'm Catherine Lazorco. I am the Communications and Engagement Director for the town, and I'm here to give you an update on the website redesign. We're planning to soft launch the redesign on April 22nd. So the redesign really features new aesthetic, somewhat tweaked, and some changed navigation. So I'm going to go through a little bit about the town website tonight and give you a quick before and after preview, a glance of the design, and share what we've learned in this process of the redesign, which has been going on for about a year. We've had a website survey. I want to share what we've learned from that. We've done user testing. We have done some deep dives into our analytics. And of course, once again, the launch date is Earth Day. And then what's next after the redesign? So the first slide I wanted to share is this one, which is actually from the resident survey, which is your next topic. And I share it because it really shows the importance of the website. This lists the primary sources for town information of our residents. And the number 2 after word of mouth is the town website. And that's not really a surprise. We know this is a very important communication tool for the town. So we need to keep our focus on it and keep it updated and easy to use and easy to access and engage with us. But the other categories are somewhat interesting too, aren't they? So about our website. This is a Civic Plus platform. It's a very common content management system that is used by cities and counties across the country. Orange County actually uses Civic Plus as well. It is managed by communication and engagement with some technical support from IT, the IT department, as well as Civic Plus technical support. And there are website admins from each department that are trained and are able to update their departmental web pages. A little history on this current site is that it dates to 2014, so it's quite aged, but it's held up pretty well. I think even before the redesign. So the redesign is basically a new skin. It's not a major overhaul. There's some tweaks to navigation, but it's not really major. You can think about it as a new skin. And some of the important part of the process has been content organizing meetings that have been taking place during the past year, and also creating a foundation of best practices for updating pages and content and training. So we started out with an eye toward improvements, and the town communications team got together. We looked at our analytics. We started talking more to frontline staff, some of whom are actually on the team, about what kinds of calls they receive, what common questions do they receive from the public. Does our website answer those questions already, or are there gaps? And so that was one of the first steps. We also conducted a town website survey. We did user testing. I'm going to kind of go into some more of this in a moment. The analytics research, and then also keeping call traffic logs and department questionnaires. So here's the before, which you're well acquainted with. And here is an after view. When I'm finished with this presentation, I can actually bring up the website, the test environment, so you can kind of see it and how it can kind of move and sparkle a little bit. But I thought it might be easier just to kind of run through this first and then see where we are in time. You see in the middle here, we have a series of buttons. We have more buttons than we did before. We looked at what are those services that people are most looking for, and for example, trash collection is really one of the top ones, and that needed to be there, as well as I think town code and a few others. So we've added those. Also, this top navigation has changed just slightly. This Experience Carrboro is kind of a new catch-all. We don't have Visit Carrboro anymore at the top, or visitors, I think it was, because we now have a Visit Carrboro website. But Experience Carrboro can kind of connect with both visitors and residents who want to experience different aspects of the town. We still have our upcoming events and our calendar, and ongoing projects is kind of a new area here where we're providing easy access to projects reports, construction projects, and other kinds of things that we know that residents are looking for. And we know they're looking because we can look at our analytics and tell. The news flash area pretty much stays the same, except it has this refreshed kind of look. And I'll talk about that for just a minute. It is still within our brand guidelines. We're still using the purple and the green. There's little hints of orange here and there. I think one of the main changes is that it's hopefully cleaner and it has a white background so that we're not trying to read text over lavender color, which has been an issue with accessibility. This other area here is engage with us, knowing how important it is that to engage with our community. We want to try to find lots of avenues that people can connect with us, whether that be volunteering, applying to an advisory board, or signing up for town news and learning more about their town council. This is an interior page, just one example. And each page will have these buttons in the upper left. Council video will take to a splash page for the council, where we'll offer access to both the YouTube videos as well as Legistar information. And then the sign up, Carrboro being front and center as well. So where we came, our path, I'll kind of walk you through a little bit of our journey here. We conducted a website survey last summer, and it was distributed in August. We distributed it via our email lists, as well as social media, distributed flyers, and had a really pretty good response at more than 100 participants. The demographic breakdown is below, and it's compared to our census numbers. So what did people say in the survey? And you have the full results. This is just kind of a quick glance, but finding what they need, 88% said it was extremely very or somewhat easy, but 12% said, no, it's really not easy to find what I need. Does the website meet your needs? Again, 83%, pretty high number, said, yeah, we're good. But then there's 17% said, no, it's not meeting my needs. Visually appealing, I think that has consistently been pretty high. I think our community really does like our colors, and they're proud and they feel a real connection. So the visual really wasn't a large concern, except for the accessibility with the purple background. I'm pleased to see that people trust the information. This is the kind of question that we have to ask today. So when we get at those percentages of people, not finding what they need, how can we drill down on that? Well, we have an open-ended question, and I hope you had a chance to look at some of the comments, because our citizens are really smart and they are very astute, and they gave us a lot of great feedback. And I've just kind of called out a few things here, but they said make things easier to find, improve the search button, the search function on the website. Someone asked, where do I find past council meetings? So, making that splash council page may kind of assist with that. And then some other comments about content. Someone said, content is good, you just need to do a little spring cleaning. And that's absolutely right on point. Someone said, everything I need is here. Another person said, I appreciate the timely sharing of news. So that indicates that's why they're coming to the website, is because maybe they received, they saw a tweet or something and then landed on the news page. Other more specific comments, difficulty interpreting color codes on the trash and recycling map. This was August, and of course, Carrboro Music Festival was coming up, so people were saying, well, I don't see the Carrboro Music Festival on the website. You need to add that. Okay. But we also know that our residents really like events, and so that's important to them, so we need to see that we have those front and center. And, other specific comments. Getting around may not be very clear to some people. Maybe we should call that transportation instead. And PDFs are difficult for mobile. We know that too. But we can't discard all of them, but we can see where we can reduce them for sure. User studies. UX is really just a user experience. Probably shouldn't have used an acronym here, but this is the name of the class that we worked with at UNC. The UNC Husband School of Media and Journalism. Professor Laura Rule, big shout out to her. She has a regular class that does user testing of websites. And so they did a deep dive into our website. And then they called us over around October and gave us a report out. So that was very interesting and useful. Here are some pictures of the student team with some of our staff members and some of the classroom presentations. So there were 4 groups as part of these studies, and they basically corralled people to test, and they would give them a series of questions and exercises, asking them to find different things on the website, and then they would observe them and take notes, and that was part of their report. And that's kind of a quick snapshot of it. But they were very careful to also keep participant profiles. And not all of the groups just focused on usability. Some of them also focused on accessibility. There was one group that focused on how well the site responded to people who had visual impairments and were using different browsers for that. So some of those findings, very, very precise, rename our community, it's much too broad. That was a great comment, very useful. The main navigation bar is overwhelming. We hear that too. Slow load time, consistent across both this study and also with our own residents and what they had to say. Fix those broken links. Again, that's spring cleaning, and the town communications team is on it. Social media on the homepage. One of the groups had one of the students engaged their mother, who is a Spanish speaker, was not accustomed to coming to city websites, came on the site, scrolled down, somehow landed on the Instagram feed and went down kind of a rabbit hole on Instagram. Well, that's kind of an indicator, a really good indicator that maybe that doesn't belong there anymore. It also contributes to slowing down the website. So that's already been changed. Those are already off, and there's just some small links for social media at the bottom of the homepage. So positives, attractive, these groups said, there's a lot of warmth on our website. Even before the redesign, there's a lot of warmth. We think it's attractive. And overall, it's pretty easy to use. So it's not terrible, it just needs some refreshing. We also looked at analytics. And the thing I'll say about that is that we've only had Google Analytics since January. So we're still learning all that we can collect from that. And it's pretty fascinating. So previous to that, we had another application that was a little bit clunkier. So we had very kind of cursory information, but we could find popular pages, which were listed here, which we pretty well know: job openings, recreation, police, common search terms, and again, those kind of, influence how we organize the homepage. There's the screenshot here is actually from Google Analytics, and I think on the right-hand side, on the left graphic kind of, reflects some of the popular pages. The graphic on the right, I've kind of put there because it surprised me that the top content type that people are coming to the website for are news flashes. So it's just a good reminder. And so the second one there is actually the home page, which that makes sense. and then town directory, then you can see the other areas. But it's a reminder to all of us that, people aren't just coming to our website just for no reason. They're not just browsing. They're not just, they're coming because we're inviting them, or they have an issue with something they need to get done. So the more that we can, bring people into the website, it doesn't always have to be news either. It can be, hey, did you know we have this list of native plants that you should check out, so resources like that. And then this page really is to say that, unfortunately, we cannot gather great analytics on demographics of our users. Pretty much we get gender, and I think I can also get something like some of their main interests. And then the one I'm also very interested in is their browser language, how they're setting their browsers for translation, so that we know, what languages people are speaking when they're coming to the site. So this is about my last slide, and really the point here is to say that all these bullet points are kind of, more things we need to do at the website. So, April 22nd is going to be here really soon, and it'll be a soft launch. We probably won't really announce it to the public until the following week, just anticipating that some things may not go perfectly well, and we'll have some time to fix them. But I really would like to see us be in a mode of continual improvement, that we can, get excited about looking at our analytics, and understanding what they mean, using opportunities to engage more with the public. We have Carrboro Day coming up. We can put out our laptops. We can talk to the public, and show them the website and ask them to tell us what their experience has been with it, as well as Carrboro conversations or maybe focus groups. We can do more on an ongoing basis. And lastly, the other piece that's really neat is that the professor at the journalism school, Laura Rule, has said she'll feature our website in their next class, so that we'll have a comparison. So we'll be able to see a before and after, and did some of those issues reduce, hopefully. So I think that's everything, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Kat. And I know this takes a lot of work, and it wasn't just you. It was you and recruiting, a team from all the departments, as you mentioned, the people who are providing the content, right, for you to feature and make easy to access. So I appreciate all the work that you all have put into it. As someone who also in my day job has recently been dragged into the Google Analytics universe, I also know that that's a big job. So good luck to you with that. Questions, Randy, and then Susan.
Thank you, Kat, for doing this and working with a team of folks who took a really serious look at the website. The shout out to the Hussman user experience crew. I really appreciate their input. Couple of thoughts. First, on the advisory boards, I know I get a lot of calls from folks. Where are the minutes from advisory board group? They're folks who don't necessarily attend the meetings, that's it's public, but they don't attend the meetings, but they want to see the minutes. So I know that the agendas are up, or even they're archived, but folks want to see the minutes of the advisory. Thank you for updating the advisory board memberships and giving emails, because I know one of the other calls I always get is, well, how do I get in touch with, the chair of this or that advisory board? So thank you for that, because that's something that always comes up. I was curious. Well, first of all, I will, in all fairness, I'm going to just say it. I'm one of the folks who, when I have to get in there and start to drill down to find something, man, I have a hard time. I drove Kathy crazy. I'm already driving Wes crazy. I even asked our manager, it's like, so how do we make it easier for somebody who, says, wait a minute, I want to know, well, what is the best way to find out about these setbacks in this particular zone? They may not have the words, so you need an instrument that's going to kind of figure out, it's like when you Google something, you get the first word, you get 10 things that come up with like, is this what you mean? Is this what you mean? So I'm just putting that out there because, sometimes folks do not, it doesn't come naturally to figure out how something may be, the algorithm pick it up. So I'm going to just say that. I'm very interested in the fact that the user experience folks picked up on the fact that maybe not use the term our community, and yet on the other side they felt that there was a strong sense of community conveyed. Tell me how are we conveying a strong sense of community? What do you think, or what kind of just anecdotal feedback did they give? Because that's usually the hardest thing to do. And if we're doing that, how can we identify what that is?
I think the site has a good number of images of people, very prominent. And I think Carrboro is, one of the Carrboro's greatest strengths is community events. And that's all about bringing people together. So we do show a lot of images of people. Maybe they're running, or maybe they're at a show, or so I think it's seeing people.
Yeah, I would guess so. Now, when you had the picture of before and after, I just have this one other question, just being a visual person that I am. The new design, does it have, you see the way that is, because I'm on the website actually right now, because I'm trying to think, and I don't know whether this is where it has to be, but you see how you have a split, oh, shoot, lost it, there it is. There's, maybe that's not the one that showed like there was this, yeah. So my question is, below the button line, okay, so will it be like that on most pages, or will there be pictures below? And the reason I ask is because of the sizing of what is below. In other words, the banner is fine. The banner is really a great draw, right? But below that, where you have to start to navigate with buttons and whatnot, I'm just wondering, it looked like there was just another full size, running a large picture below. And I'm just wondering if there's stuff below that, is that the sizing of that picture, is that overbearing? And I'm just curious.
That's possible. I just am showing you the actual, this is the live page.
It's in the second third, if it's in thirds. I don't know how.
I want to show you how it's responsive. So how a lot of people are seeing the site is like this. So that's their mobile view. So they may not even be seeing that large image. Something that was happening when I first came on board was this image wasn't sizing.
Right.
And it was a problem. So we got that fixed. And we've added more buttons here, but you can scroll. And generally speaking, there used to be a rule about homepage design that don't overload it, or just a certain amount was like that you had to stop at certain amount of buttons and whatnot. But people are so accustomed to scrolling now that it's really not an issue anymore. And they'd rather scroll and have it all there than, because they don't want to click a link.
Right.
They don't want to click a link, so you just try to put everything that you can on that canvas.
Yeah, I also really like that you've, that second image, and you seem to have, you're doing it in the grays, and that's also restive on eyes that are looking for something specific. So anyway, well, thank you for this work. It's very impressive. I look forward to continuing to use it as it evolves.
Thank you. Feedback is welcome anytime.
Okay, thank you. We have Susan and then Barbara.
Hi, Kat.
Hey.
There was a couple numbers that really stood out to me. So one number was 61% of Carrboro residents use the town website for their information. And then the other number was 95% of the people surveyed said, I trust the information. So those numbers, first of all, tell me how important the work is that you are doing and also how good you are at it. So thank you for all the work you do in communications for the town. And the numbers are also a reminder how important it is that we continue to work to ensure everybody has access to broadband. We're getting closer, but still not there yet. So something to still continue to work on. You mentioned about the people in the website, and I really appreciate the different types of people you mentioned. There was one group that was missing. I have felt it was missing, and that's workers. I don't see many pictures of people who are at work, and I don't know if it's certainly on the business page, but even maybe scattered throughout, because I think it's such an important characteristic of our town. And if it should help through my work with Orange County Living Wage, we have had a photographer, professional photographer, who has visited different workplaces to get pictures of employees. So if that's something that would help, I'd be happy
wonderful.
to share that with you. But just to have that aspect a little bit more featured on the website would be a suggestion. The other thing I wanted to mention was in the notes, I noticed that there were some comments, not a lot, but it was certainly more than one or two occasions. People said they had trouble finding the agendas to the town council meetings, the videos, the minutes. And I wasn't quite sure when you spoke about that. You said something like it would appear on a back page, and I didn't quite understand.
Well,
Maybe I misunderstood that, but could that be a little bit more prominent, I guess what I'm asking.
yes, I think we need this link here. We need a council landing page for all of your, that, we could notify, and I'll be working with Wesley on this, but that would notify people they would going to Legistar to access certain materials. But because we now have the legislative portal and YouTube, and we have other kinds of content, I think making a kind of splash page where people can access all of that in one spot might be good. So that's kind of the idea. And also, I don't want to I'm not sure what that link would go to, a council video, would it be? I'd rather give people a preference, and then also inform them of the availability of cable TV to view council meetings.
There's another listing. I noticed on the business page there's lots of different lists, but I've never seen a list, and I'm not even sure it's a list the town necessarily has to need to maintain, but I wondered if Carrboro Business Alliance would want to take it on. It would be a list of all of the businesses in Carrboro, and they would be identified as nonprofits, those that are BIPOC owned, those that are living wage certified, those that are locally owned. I didn't know if I realize that's a big list, and I realize it's a list that would take a lot of maintenance, but also it would be a nice list if somebody could maintain it, and then we could just link to that, because it would be really nice to just see all of those different businesses. That's just something probably not in the near future, but maybe to be thinking about longer term. And I have talked to another couple of people who have been very interested in the Rex and Park classes, but they need financial assistance. They can't afford the classes. And I've mentioned this before, and I think there has been some tweaking of the language, but it still is feeling very daunting to people. It's asking for lots of information in order to show that they are in fact in need of financial assistance, and especially coming out of the, I think people are just living with tremendous amounts of stress right now, and a lot of, 2 or 3 people have said they have really looked forward to it's a music class or an art class or whatever, and it turned out they did not take the class because they got too overwhelmed with what was needed in order to apply. So I was hoping you could look at that at some point just to see if that, working with Anita, maybe that could be simplified in some way so it's not quite so daunting to folks. And final question is, one other quick thing. I loved the logo on Carrboro Connects where it included, the logo was in Spanish and also in Burmese Karen. And I didn't know if there was any way to include that on our website too, because I really love that. And then finally, I just wanted to say, there's a section on volunteer opportunities, and is that just volunteer opportunities for the town? Is that what you're thinking about for that section, as opposed to volunteer opportunities that other nonprofits in the community may want to advertise on the town site? You're thinking that's just...
It's really for just the town.
It would get too overwhelming.
Unless we had some kind of application as we do for community events, but it would be a lot to maintain. Wise, but yeah, I'd like to see it. Right now we have a lot for volunteers for rec and parks, and I think stormwater, but kind of expanding that to the whole town to see what other departments might use volunteers. So,
got you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Barbara?
That's what I was going to say. Hold on. Thank you, Catherine Lazorco, for being very thoughtful in your work, and always willing, to listen, when approached with a suggestion or an idea. I appreciate it. You're very thoughtful in your work, both on social media, with the web. You are the subject matter expert. And I just appreciate all your work. I think we're in good hands with the website, like you said, with a little bit of tweaking. And I just look forward to seeing, the finished product. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to see if you could talk a little bit more about the test group. How they were pulled together, maybe who was a part of the test group, some of those profiles you were talking about. If you had any more information to share, if you don't, then you just don't.
So I didn't aggregate all of there were 4 teams, and they had a variety of different subjects. I could look back through the reports and see if I could pull it together.
If there's any more information to provide, that you can provide later, that would be good as well. And I have one more question for you, because it made me think about it's not about the website. I wanted to, you just come up with some really good ideas, around communications around town. And one of them I know that you mentioned a while back was about the neighborhood liaisons. It's not related to this. And so I wanted to ask how you're doing with that work, and just where you are with that. I know it's just been a whole lot of other things going on, so maybe that's something that you plan to get to.
Yes, it's definitely on my radar. The liaisons were identified, and they're sort of there, I think, receiving our information, and in theory, they're sending it out to their communities. But I need to check in with them and see how everything is going, and then also recruit more. But really, I'm looking at ways to try to connect that effort with Carrboro Conversations and some other things so we can kind of thread everything together so it makes sense. I've been a little apprehensive about inviting more people to become liaisons until we have a better structure to be welcoming and supportive of them. But thank you for asking. I really do want to get moving on it again.
And I just also wanted to say, I appreciate the diversity that's shown on the website, the diversity in the community, on both like in your pictures, and also information, just trying to reach people. So I can see, the efforts that are going into that. And I just wanted you to know that I appreciate that. You make us look good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Barbara. Great comments. All right. There's no action requested of us tonight, I don't believe, just an information update and a chance to get a preview of the new website. So, Kat, good luck with the soft launch on the 22nd. Looking forward to using the new search tools and navigating a little bit someday.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback, and really appreciate it. And the other things you see, and things that we can do on a ongoing basis, just reach out to Richard or myself, and we can make quick updates.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
She gets to stay right there, doesn't she?
That's right. You're on the next item. Mr. Manager?
The next item is the Carrboro resident survey results. The purpose of this agenda item is to provide the results of the Carrboro resident survey.
Great. Welcome, Kat.
Well, thank you. Good to be here, and this is also quite an occasion because your resident survey is only conducted every other year, so it's a big deal, and it's kind of exciting to see what the residents have to say about the town, and it's been very positive. So this PowerPoint presentation is actually from ETC Institute. It's from Chris Tatum, who is the CEO, and he was unable to be here. So I just want to start out with a caveat that this is not my, this is really this is the company. And if your questions get very technical, I'm going to take copious notes and we will send them to Chris Tatum. But I have a lot of confidence in this company. I have worked with them for many years, and they do, as this slide says, they do lots of surveys all over the country. Locally, they do Chapel Hill, Hillsborough, City of Durham, Wake County, Mecklenburg County. I mean, the list is really long. They do a lot of North Carolina. So we're going to go over purpose and methodology, key considerations, major findings, a summary of the survey, and then take your questions. The purpose of the survey is it is like a biennial report card for the town. How do people perceive town services, and it assesses satisfaction. We also are able to get important benchmarking data from a company like ETC that has lots of clients all over the country, and a way of comparing our performance with others. So. And we can also use the survey to help determine priorities for the community as part of the town's ongoing planning process. So the methodology, this was administered by mail, email, and text. The goal was to obtain completed surveys from a random sample of at least 400 residents. And in typical Carrboro fashion, you got more than 500. So it really surprised Chris Tatum. Margin of error is listed here, and ETC also oversampled residents in the qualified census tracts to ensure that these populations were well represented. And I'm going to talk a little bit more separately about those. Right now I'm going to talk about them. I created this slide just as kind of a couple slides as an overview. Oversampling is kind of focusing in on a group that may be hard to reach, or that you want to get unique data on. And the purpose of the oversampling or the special survey of those residents in Carrboro's qualified census tract was really spurred by the effort to get more feedback on ARPA funding priorities. So because that question had come up at about the same time we were conducting the resident survey, we asked ETC, hey, can you do another survey? Because we really want to make sure that we're getting good feedback from populations that may otherwise were very, very difficult to reach. And because these residents are mainly, that they are in apartment complexes, and, you know, and this is a random sampling. This is a scientifically conducted survey. They have, you know, phone callers, and they have a incentive. People who participate are entered into a random drawing to receive a $500 gift card, things that the town just normally can't do. So we really wanted to take advantage of that. So the primary purpose of really targeting or circling the qualified census tract was about those questions. But we did get them to answer all the other questions too. So it is interesting data to have. So we have all the data that's, you know, from the 500 some random sample, and then we also have data from this unique sample. And we haven't really lined them up very closely just yet to analyze what the differences might be, but we're certainly collecting the ARPA funding priority feedback for that question, which will be coming to you in the near future. All that to say that this was, the qualified census tract, they received a postcard mailing. ETC almost sent out as many postcards as they did the initial letter as part of the town-wide survey, about 2,000. And then they followed up with texts. I've included a table here to show the demographics and the comparison of our census numbers with, you know, the respondents breakdown on the town survey, and then the breakdown for the qualified census tract. That's what that chart shows. And then I just called out a couple of key points, similarities that we see between these two surveys. The high points for quality of life, they're still very high on both surveys, very high. ARPA funding priorities, just about identical. But the differences are also interesting, and we haven't really done a deep dive on these yet, but access to the internet, 6% say no, I don't have access to the internet in the QCT, the qualified census tract, versus 3% said no in the overall townwide survey, which is interesting. Adequacy of street lighting, and I kind of pulled a random few here. So adequacy of street lighting, 18.5% dissatisfied in the qualified census tract versus 11% dissatisfied in the overall sampling. That's interesting to me. And then this is probably not a surprise because many of these residents are renters, but far fewer belong to neighborhood associations or HOAs. So and then this is a map showing the actual qualified census tract. This is a map showing the geographic distribution of the respondents to the townwide survey. So we had a good, you know, the company has to make sure that they have a good spread, that we're reaching all areas geographically of town, in addition to reaching a wide demographic sampling. So our considerations tonight, key things to share: the overall satisfaction with the town of Carrboro is very high. The town of Carrboro is delivering high quality services. The town of Carrboro is setting the standard for the delivery of local government services. That's in all caps because it's actually it's like a term that this company uses, and they use that term when you're in the running for an award. And it's very likely that Carrboro will receive an award based on the high numbers that we received in this survey. Last consideration, the town's management of housing and economic development related issues should be a high priority. So ratings for public engagement are high, and you can see from this slide how high they are. Town is responsive to the needs of its residents. Only 4% disagreed with that. They're satisfied with the overall quality of services. And the arrow here is pointing out that only 2%, is pointing out the 2% are not satisfied. So very high numbers here as well. Overall feeling of safety in the town, quite high. Quality of customer service from town employees, very, very high. And the value received for town tax dollars and fees is high. So residents give Carrboro very high marks as a place to live and raise children. So, so really kind of write down the down these key metrics. We can see this perception of just a really wonderful place to live, and people are very positive about Carrboro. Their satisfaction with the major categories of town services. You can see, that when I post pictures of Public Works, I know I'm going to get a lot of likes because our residents love their trash collectors, and this shows it too. And a firefighter, of course, everyone loves a firefighter. So we know our fire services are excellent. And of course, our parks and recreation facilities and services are excellent. And their programs, that's, both right there. And police services right after that. So I'm not going to go through all of them. And I'm going to try to keep moving. The town of Carrboro is setting the standard for the delivery of local government services. And what that gets at is the benchmarking data. So the dark blue is showing Carrboro's ranking as a place to live, and the other colors are showing either the Atlantic region or the U.S. So let me just.
Like the color code is on the bottom of that graph there, Kat.
Yes, and I had a little bit more data about that I wanted to share. Maybe I don't have it. Okay. All right, this is what So when Carrboro is compared to communities across the region and the United States, it scores the highest in every comparable category. For example, overall ratings for Carrboro as a place to live were 98% for Carrboro, 60% in the Atlantic region, and 50% in the United States. So this data is collected by the company, and it's reliable. This slide shows how residents of Carrboro feel much safer, rate services better, and think they get more value for their taxes. So again, the dark blue is Carrboro, and then the other colors represent different regions of the U.S. Ratings for Public Works are among the best in the nation. So we can see that Public Works is performing extremely well as these other service areas are as well. So the town is setting the standard for police and fire safety, education, and outreach. Maintenance ratings are significantly higher than the national average in all areas. And this is the maintenance and cleanliness of streets and public areas, and the maintenance of downtown Carrboro. Communication and engagement. These numbers are never very high, and it always kind of breaks my heart, but apparently people just don't, there tend to be a lot of neutrals. So that's what I always try to tell people. There's a lot of neutrals. They're just not saying they're not giving a thumbs up, but they're just kind of saying, I really don't know. I don't really engage with any of those things. So
You don't pay attention till they have to.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. They don't come to the website until they have to, and then they have an opinion about it. So so this is interesting, very interesting to me. So I'm getting to the end of this presentation, and of course the this last point is about the town's management of housing and economic development related issues as being a high priority. And that's really because of the way that residents have ranked them. And what this table shows is a sorting of services. And it's a really interesting metric. It's called importance satisfaction. And those items with the lowest satisfaction and the highest importance rise to the top of the list. So if that makes sense. So if something was low in satisfaction but also low in importance, it would just kind of stay at the bottom. But if it's a pain point, so it's important but there's low satisfaction, it will rise to the top. So you have the complete data in your packets, and this particular area is worth exploring a little further. I think it's fascinating. And for example, planning. A lot of people don't use planning until they need to. So it's just kind of in the middle. People don't really feel strongly about it one way or another. So housing was the only topic on the survey with high levels of dissatisfaction, and of course we know this is very much a local issue as well as a national issue. So the availability of a range of housing types, efforts to expand and preserve affordable housing, and the availability of housing options by price, clear. So this slide shows other priorities by department: public safety, transportation, public facilities, housing, and communications. Because each of the questions really asked residents, how do you feel about these services? And then what are your priorities? So I won't read the slide. I will let you do that. And I will summarize with Chris Tatum's slide that overall satisfaction with the town of Carrboro is very high, and the town is delivering high quality services. It's setting the standard. And again, once again, the housing and economic development issues should be a high priority. It may also be worth noting and reminding ourselves that this survey was conducted during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So, even conducting a survey at this time was really kind of an unknown of how people would respond. Yeah. So there's Chris Tatum's information, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Kat, and thanks for presenting on Chris's behalf. And I think we may have some questions, some of us, to follow up with Chris about if people have some
I'm going to take good
details
notes
that they're interested in learning more about. I just want to say congratulations to the staff. You and all of your colleagues, Mr. Manager. I mean, you don't get numbers like this without a really amazing town staff. And the work shows through in surveys like this, even though I know that because so many of our staff are on the front lines in providing customer service, providing services directly to residents and visitors, that you're not always hearing from people who are the happiest about whatever's going on in their lives on that day. But when we have a survey like this that comes through, and it's a pretty consistent story we get every couple of years that reminds us of just how great a job our staff is doing in every department. Really appreciate that work. And thank you for honing in on that message for us tonight, Kat. But our residents are very engaged in this survey. As you mentioned, we got a good response rate from a random sample of residents, and they've identified for us where there's work to be done. And so we want to keep a note of that too. So thankfully, at least from my perspective, there were no huge surprises about what those priorities are. They're priorities I happen to share. So hopefully we can get some work done on those. Council members, questions for Kat or things you'd like to pass along to Chris Tatum? Susan, and then let's say Barbara, and then Susan. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Catherine Lazorka, again, for the presentation. And so these open-ended comments. So we had two questions here. Why doesn't anyone in your household ride a bicycle? And then there's an optional, please share specific suggestions for how the town should use ARPA funds in the space provided below. So I appreciated reading all of those, especially about how we should use the ARPA funding. I look upon this input as very important about how to spend the ARPA funding. But I was just curious, how did we choose these questions, like these particular questions? And I also wanted to say just to my colleagues, I mean, we have a job ahead of us as far as how to spend the ARPA funding, and it can also help us with town budget priorities because the community is speaking, and they're speaking through this survey. And so everything can't be a priority. We get multiple requests from folks all the time, you know, about different things. And we understand different community members want to see different things, but you know, the overarching theme here, of course, is still centering, you know, on the housing, you know, the housing piece and what's not available. And so I certainly look upon this as a way, as a tool, I guess I should say a tool to help us with our town budget priorities, as well as try to figure out, you know, how to spend the ARPA funding, which we're probably never going to potentially never get again. And so how did we get these questions? Was this just randomly, or these two questions in particular? They provided good information.
Yeah, certainly. The ARPA funding question was carefully crafted to match the federal language. Yep. with I think some description in parens about what some of those terms really meant. You know, examples of what infrastructure might mean. So that is how those questions came about. And we did, you know, there is an ARPA team, and we talked quite a bit about being sure that we weren't changing the meaning in some way. And in our effort to try to simplify the federal language, we still want to be sure that it's that we're accurate in conveying what the federal government says they can or cannot be used for. The bicycle riding, I think that is part of a series of planning questions that related to transportation. And I think, as I recall, I think Chapel Hill has the same questions, and some of these are regionally matched up to see, you know, how we're doing as a region on some of these questions. So. Okay.
Thank you. And let me ask Mr. White, let me turn my head over here. Ask Mr. White real quick about, and you anticipate, I guess you and the mayor anticipate us having that discussion about the ARPA funding maybe sometime next month?
Yes, we're planning to bring it forward in May.
schedule?
Yes, you can see we're still gathering. This is the last piece of information we're waiting for, so we now have that. So in May, we plan to bring back an update to council.
Cool. Thank you.
Great question. Thanks, Barbara. Susan.
Yeah, thanks again, Kat. And just one quick question, one quick comment. I wanted to follow up with what Councilmember Foushee said, because I remember months ago you had raised this whole idea of the participatory budgeting, and which I really appreciated. And actually, that's what we've done here in a way, haven't we? And I really appreciate the fact that that question was asked specifically for those two census tracts. And I'm curious, when the ARPA, when some of the materials are presented to us, will it include that those responses were from those particular census tracts? Would we be able to get that so that we're knowing where it came from? It would be kind of nice to know. And then I wanted to follow up on some of the things that the mayor said, and I couldn't agree more in terms of the amazing job that staff does in terms of the quality of services that are provided day in and day out. And it does make me think too, though, Mr. Manager, has there been any consideration of doing certainly not the same scope, but a survey of staff about their work satisfaction, about in order, I ask this because, you know, we could not
we could be happier in terms of the quality of services being delivered, but I also worry that is that coming at too high of a price on our staff in terms of the hours worked, the stress they are under, these questions about are you feeling safe, are you feeling supported, just like we're asking the residents in the community. I would love to at some point be able to ask those same questions to staff so that we can make sure that we are supporting staff as much as we possibly can so that they continue to be in the position to provide these high quality services. So I was curious if there had been consideration for some kind of similar survey of our staff.
Yes, thank you for asking. I have a draft on my desk right now that we're trying to finalize and hope to have out in the next 2 weeks to our employees.
Excellent.
Right. And that will be something that we will see as part of the consideration of the budget then. In other words, will we have any results from that survey that would help guide us in terms of, decisions that we'll be making on the budget?
Yes, in some aggregate form, because you want employees to feel confident and safe that the information they're providing that we don't plan to share widely, but yes, we'll certainly provide some summary of those comments for council's consideration.
That will be great. Thank you. Thank you, Kat.
Thanks, Susan. And one other thought, Richard, I had about this presentation that Kat gave tonight is I hope that staff will get to see these results. In a way, this is a report card or sort of an evaluation by the community of the work that all the staff are doing, and I hope that there'll be an opportunity to share the good news.
Yes, we're planning for a staff picnic if hopefully the COVID numbers continue as they are and won't get too much worse in May. And so I plan for it to be a celebration of what's occurred in the past 2+ years in the town and the work they've done.
Right. And linked to something that Susan said, it's also a good reminder to us that one of the important things that the town is an employer. And it's important for us to make sure that our employees are being well taken care of. And I know that's a priority for you, manager. And I'm looking forward to learning more about how the picnic goes. Randy.
Given the great appreciation throughout the town for public work, I'm just going to make a plug to get photos of our public works folks on the banner of our webpage, because I'm going to tell you, these folks they're the best, and I know they're working shorthanded, and I just think they need to know that they need to be front and center, because we all pay attention to who they are and chat with them. Sometimes we're running out there with our containers as they're making it right. But they are wonderful. And I also want to point out that, for example, when things like when storm drains get clogged, you can call them. They'll come out. They will clear it. They always do it with a smile and want to know what else they can do. And yes, they are hometown heroes. So thank you. And that's pulling those two things together. It's a fine report.
Thank you.
Sammy?
Thanks, Kat, for both presentations. I didn't comment on the last one. I don't have much to comment on this one either, but I did want to follow up on the point of the ARPA funds and making sure that our advisory boards, I'm not sure what the correct order would be, but at least the Stormwater Utility Commission has wanted to know a little more information about how these funds might be able to be used for them. And I think it would benefit them to see if they get and when they get the presentation, the results of the survey. I don't know if it'll be a situation where the town council provides feedback, and that will also be information that we'll want to seek from our advisory boards. They're helping us think something through, or if it'll be they will provide feedback before we look at that presentation. But either way, I hope the advisory boards are included in providing input.
Thanks, Sammy. All right, y'all. Kat, thank you for both presentations. As Sammy said, appreciate all your work.
Thank you.
Council members, it is 10 after 9. We have reached the end of the agenda. Sammy.
Yeah, I just wanted to, encourage us to think that wearing masks isn't so bad. And in light of rising numbers, the real possibility and benefit of a mandate, leading the way, and especially in light of the fact that it seems like a lot of the cues we take on in terms of what to do are taken from what the CDC is saying. And there are a lot of questions surrounding what are the real motives of the CDC. And I think we have an opportunity, and one of the reasons I work at the local government level is I really believe in the power of responding to what our citizens want and doing things differently in light of bigger forces. And unfortunately, on the federal level and state level, big money has a lot of say on how things happen. So I encourage us to really think as a council that we have the power to do the mask mandate. We've delegated this to our town, to our mayor. So either we signal very strongly to him our wish to be, look at these numbers seriously, or like look at what our delegating that power means and revisit that question.
Thanks, Sammy. Did have a meeting with the large group on Friday, and I know that Chief Schmidt is planning to send around notes from that meeting. And of course, we did review the most recent metrics that you mentioned, and we'll continue to do so. We are in touch frequently about those numbers, so thank you for the prompt.
That's one question.
Yes.
Were y'all, when you met on Friday, did you have the wastewater numbers then? Because my understanding is,
Yes.
okay.
And we're seeing what's largely consistent throughout the state. Most of the numbers are pretty consistent here with what's happening statewide. They're seeing an uptick in cases and some increases in the wastewater numbers. The health director is interested in seeing what the trend looks like. So I think, as we keep watching it, it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. I also did ask the question that you've asked a couple of times in the past few weeks, Sammy, about supplies of masks and other protective equipment. They're feeling good about supplies that they have. They haven't been receiving as many requests from agencies, from social service agencies and other local groups for masks yet, but they do feel good about their supplies right now.
Okay, good, thanks. I just want to share, because this is a public meeting, that I was able to walk into Tar Heel Family Pharmacy, and just with my insurance card, they gave me the 7 tests right on the spot. Now, my understanding is CVS, these are rapid tests. CVS is a little more onerous. You have to go through their website to get it. And I'm not sure what Walmart or Walgreens is, but now's a good time to get rapid tests. Unfortunately, the federal government is not refunding a lot of the measures for addressing COVID. So there is a real possibility that the support that we have right now could dry up, maybe not in this wave, but in a following wave.
And I just will come behind Sammy with a shout out to Tar Heel Town Pharmacy, because that's where I got my second booster. In fact, I saw Sammy when I was on my way over there. So yeah, they have it.
Thank you
Go
for
get it.
mentioning the boosters. Actually, one of the key takeaways from our conversations with the health director last week was the fact that although this is a very highly vaccinated community, it is not a very well boosted community. And so if you will please be encouraging all of our neighbors to take advantage of opportunities to get a booster, this is a great time to do it as we see some of these numbers start to creep back up. So get a booster. They are still available from the county health department for free and in other locations, perhaps through your employer, depending on where you work. All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And moved by Barbara, seconded by Randy, that we adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Matter passes unanimously. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thanks, Damon.
Thank you. It's good to see you all. It's weird to be back.